the ear, and it's not just because he hit some random soccer bet in the third Greek league. So let's jump into it. BetMGM, you know the deal. We're going to head out there and give you a 3-leg parlay, and then we're going to supersize the hell out of this sucker, because when these hit, they just blow up through the roof. Now, with that said, you can do whatever you want here. You can play these individually. We're going to give you 6 bets. You can play them individually, or you can run them in 2 separate parlays. You can run round robins, what have you. It's all up to you. And on top of that, that risk-free opportunity is still here at BetMGM. So, I have to continue to remind you about that because, I don't know, you're just not taking advantage of it, maybe. Whatever it is, you're not doing it. Look, I love the opportunity here at BetMGM to attack a player prop. And normally, Noah Syndergaard over 5.5 Ks would be an absolute no for me, dog. But how can we ignore the fact that the Cincinnati Reds are abysmal when it comes to avoiding strikeouts? They're one of the highest strikeout rate teams, K rate teams in baseball. And when you have a pitcher whose K rate is only about 18%, you may scoff at the notion. Look, most places shop around. You might find this at over 4.5, but I imagine that since this is heavily shaded, the juice is already reflecting that elsewhere. I'm okay getting to 6 Ks. In fact, if you were to look at any player performance double or anything along the lines of a same game parlay where you wanted to combine Syndergaard, Ks, and a Phillies win, I'd be okay with that and probably do 5. But I'm good at plus 115. We're going to supersize this game. And I'm great starting off over 5.5 plus 115. By the way, shout to BetMGM. The site looks really cool. They've made it even easier and even more streamlined to just kind of identify what's happening here. So that's the first leg of what we're doing. Second leg here is going to be the Angels. And you can go down and look at the runs. And what we're going to do is fade the Angels against Jeffrey Springs and the Rays. This is a team that is struggling. Shohei Ohtani could not overcome any personal illness. Nothing is working here. The return of Mike Trout, it's just not working. And you're going up against a guy in Tampa Bay, physically in Tampa Bay, in Jeffrey Springs, who has one hell of a stat line that matters, like a whip that's just sitting at 1. And this guy is not giving up many runs as well. Look, I think for the Angels, we're just catching them, and we've seen this already. We're catching them on a downturn, on a downswing, on a team that just is struggling to do much. Springs has a K rate of 26.5. Angels strike out left and right. I mean, what are we talking about here? I don't see the Angels getting much at all from a run standpoint. Now, because we have the opportunity, I'll humor you and see if we can get to it. And they don't have the player prop up yet because this is not there for Springs. But look, under 2.5 is our second leg. Springs lights out against an Angels team that just they just don't have it, man. They really don't. Look, the Braves are going to be in a rare position taking on a bad team in the Pittsburgh Pirates, but sending a bad pitcher up to the mound. Jake Odorizzi is on the hill today, and that's a guy that we want to not target. And it's, Roanzi, you see Contreras here at plus 165 because Odorizzi has the bats, the power, that has the hard hit rate, the launch angle, everything that you want to attach to this Braves team. Braves money line minus 120. We'll keep that simple because they go on the road. I don't want to stretch this quite yet. And in fact, I'll show you the difference. But the 3-leg parlay that we'll start with, our baseline parlay over 5.5 Ks for Noah Syndergaard, under 2.
No, I hear nothing. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Monday, August 22nd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks. Lots to talk about here today. 8-game slate. I haven't basically seen a sporting event in 4 days, so I'm excited to get back into this. Renewed vigor to start my day. So I hope you guys have the same sort of feel by hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how was your weekend?
From a DFS standpoint, pretty shitty. MMA went well. I got lucky on the Leon Edwards head kick. That was beneficial. But PGA ended up sucking. Baseball sucked all weekend very badly. So hopefully this week's better.
Yeah, I woke up Sunday morning. Like, all I wanted to know was, what happened during the UFC event. There's no service at all where I am. And it poured the night before. So we wake up to the entire campsite just being wet, tents wet, stuff's wet, like the blanket that you're using is damp, the pillow that you're using is damp, it's just miserable.
So by camping, you meant like actually in a tent and stuff?
I was in a tent, yes.
It's the most white person bullshit. Like why?
I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah, but like you can get the same experience and at least have like a cabin or like something with like a bed.
Adam, I may or may not have had that exact same conversation with my wife on the way down the mountain yesterday, saying, can we do 99% of this next year while still sleeping in a place that has a roof?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, didn't do that. We slept in tents. It was nice. It's nice to break away from everything. Either way, we're on our way down the hill, and I'm just curious. And all of a sudden, my phone is just like, getting every alert that I had from the previous day. I pick it up, and the last one that I see is like Leon Edwards scores, last minute knockout. I was like, oh, come on. Like the coolest possible finish that you could get. Like the swings on that, ridiculous. I know we hit the Richie from Discord was the solo bank for the big contest, which was awesome to see.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was going to be a good Stokastic night either way, because Eddie Lai, if Usman won, Eddie Lai was going to chop with 3 people or something.
Okay.
And then if Edwards won, then he was going to win. So
it was wild to watch.
Yeah, it was one of those two. Like, I mean, I was watching, but sort of at that point had kind of just zoned out because the first round, Edwards got a takedown, which was the first time Usman's been taken down, and so I was like, all right, this wasn't expected. But then from that point on, it was pretty much Usman just doing what you would expect, and so it's like, all right, clearly he's winning this fight. There's a minute left. Probably the best part was the commentary, because Dean Thomas comes on at the start of the 5th round, and he's like, Edwards seems completely checked out in his corner. I think it's a moral victory for him if he even gets to the bell here, blah blah blah. And then Cormier and Rogan are talking with a minute and a half left about how it's a moral victory for Edwards just to get to the bell. And John Anik's like, yeah, I don't think he's cut from that cloth. I don't think he's just trying to get to the bell. And as he says that, head kick knockout.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it yet. I've got to carve out some time today to just go back and watch the fight. But so awesome. I assume Usman will be getting an immediate rematch. It would be pretty ridiculous for him to not. So
yeah, you would think. And he should be a massive favorite if he does.
Yeah. I mean, I know I saw Greg's tweet about it. I would guess that it's the same sort of situation. He should be just as big of a favorite, if not bigger, given the way that everything shook out. It should be of no surprise to anyone that taking a clean head kick is a pretty tough thing to do, no matter who you are.
Right. The only way he loses is all he needs to do to win the next fight is just not get kicked in the side of the head.
Yeah, which I think is probably a goal most times that he steps into the cage too. Anyway, that's fun. Yeah, I don't know, anything that happened in baseball for the past couple days. I know golf didn't look like it was going to go well. Things looked up for me for my one and done. I'm going to pull up the PGA leaderboards just to talk about it even more.
I'd rather take a clean head kick than go camping.
Me too now. So things were looking pretty good for me heading into the final day. I happened to come down the mountain on Saturday just to try to get an idea of what was going on. I needed, one, Colin Morikawa to have a decent day.
The opposite of that.
Well, he certainly did. He was in like 8th or something to start the morning. I was like, okay, like I'm going to be in decent shape for one and done. And then I proceed to see that he takes a 6 and a 10 on back-to-back holes and goes +8 for the entire round. And it made me do absolutely nothing. So kudos to Colin Morikawa for taking me out of cashing in one and done. Great work. Great work. That's all I had for the weekend.
It. So I was in PGA, like my Thursday was great. And then it was just like downhill from there. But DraftKings did like a private $500 Survivor League. And this was round 2. And you needed top 30 to advance to the final round. And I was top 15 after Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then yesterday, my whole team just shit the bed. But Morikawa was like, I don't know, 15, 20% owned. So I ended up finishing 29th and advancing. And I'm assuming if he didn't do absolutely awful, I would not have advanced.
There you go. There you go. Well, we got 8 games today. We should be able to breeze through this pretty easily. I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Yep.
All righty, here we go, folks. Baseball is back for me, at least. Phillies and Reds, 5.2 run implied total for the Phils, 3.5 for the Reds. Noah Syndergaard and Luis Cessa going in this one. I didn't see a long man after Cessa. I think it's just him going and like it's a full-on bullpen game. So Syndergaard projected for about 18% ownership right now. I think that seems about right. Just about anybody that can throw starter innings against the Reds is going to look viable.
Yeah, I mean, I hate when Syndergaard does look viable, but I agree. If you're facing the Reds, you're going to look pretty good. 7,800 is certainly a reasonable price tag. Not a very good strikeout pitcher anymore, only 18.3%, but 4.15 xFIP, good enough. Still doesn't walk guys, doesn't give up a lot of power. Never going to be excited about him. He's pulling 18% ownership, seems reasonable. Just a mediocre pitcher facing the Reds, and that's good enough to get you into lineups.
Yeah, I wish I had more interesting stuff to say here, but you just kind of win by default by facing Cincinnati. There's not much else to add. As long as you can go 5+ innings and your salary isn't in a broken price point, you're just going to be there. I think we're on the same page, like no Cessa and no buddy behind him.
Yeah, so the DraftKings blurb says that David Bell didn't call him an opener and said that he could end up sticking in the rotation, but clearly not stretched out right now. 18 pitches on August 15th was his most recent appearance. So I'm assuming you're getting, I don't know, 3 innings or something from him. And then you're just getting a bunch of relievers behind them.
I assume we're getting a bunch of the Phillies, 3rd in ownership today, 2nd in our top stack tool. I am getting a comparable amount. This seems like a really nice place to get to. Phillies with the highest implied total on the slate today.
Yeah, seems like a good spot. Cessa, so far this year, not a ton of major league innings or pitches thrown, but 208 expected ISO to righties, 133 to lefties. If you go back to last season, 132 to righties, 157 to lefties. So not necessarily like a total gas can. He did sort of have periods of success, like back when he was with the Yankees too. But the Phillies, we know, have plenty of power in this lineup. It's a good park to hit in, good enough offense. Schwarber being back, certainly boosts this lineup. Alec Baum is hitting unbelievably well. And he's still pretty cheap. You have Real Muto as a good catching option, even though he's having a bit of a down year. So I agree. Phillies look good here.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add. Looking like Schwarber, Hoskins, Real Muto, certainly in the cash considerations across the board. I'm sure they're in the short list at the very least for an unencumbered crunch. Trying to think if I see anything else here that would be worth pointing out. I did get to a bunch of Philly on my first crunch. We'll see if that holds as we get further down the line. Is there anything here for the Reds? I know that I just got done talking about how much they stink, but 18% ownership going to Syndergaard on the opposite side here. Do you try? Is there something that can be put together here?
Jake Fraley, who was like 1,000,000% owned yesterday and scored like 40 DraftKings points because obviously, but he's still 2,500. I assume he's going to be leading off. He does have a little bit of speed, stole 10 bases with the Mariners in 2021. So far this year, 33 games with the Reds, 2 stolen bases, 7 home runs, 253 ISO. Steamer projects him for 183 going forward. So he is somebody where, there's not a lot to like in this Reds lineup, but he is cheap. He does have some power from the left side. He does have some speed. Moustakas is 2K flat as well. Not the same stolen base threat, but Jake Fraley in particular, I think actually looks pretty reasonable.
Cash option there for Fraley?
Possibly.
Certainly, at
Like,
the very
I
least, some
doubt
sort
it,
of
but
filler.
maybe.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, it seems.
Like, if he's in there, it's more so just in the sense where it's just like, oh, I had 2,500 left and just grab the guy leading off in Philadelphia.
Okay. That works. Yeah, I mean, we got him projected for 20% ownership. I'm guessing if I run a crunch, he shows up a little bit at the top.
Yeah, I'm crunching right now just with the Stokastic projections. I'm going to see what it looks like.
Okay.
He's coming in around like 20 to 30% of them.
Okay, that makes sense.
He's in the third highest projected one.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I don't have much else to say here about the Reds other than if you're trying to get on the opposite side of Syndergaard ownership, feel free. Otherwise, the Reds aren't a very good baseball team.
They are not.
A better baseball team, well, two better baseball teams, Yankees and Mets, 3.3 run implied total for the Yankees, 4.1 for the Mets. Domingo Germán and Max Scherzer. Germán, 5% owned at 7K. Max Scherzer, 30% owned at 11,300. We're finally starting to see some of these prices rise at the top, and it's been, I'm glad, because if this was Scherzer again at like 10-2, it would be a very different slate. Even still, 30% owned against the Yankees. How do you feel about Scherzer with being like basically appropriately priced?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, and as a result, you see 30% ownership instead of 50 or whatever he's typically been getting. He's obviously the highest the best strikeout pitcher on the slate, 31.4% strikeout percentage. Next highest is Edward Cabrera in a limited sample at 28.8. Next highest with any actual sample is Jeffrey Springs at 26.1. So pretty big gap there, and clearly he's capable of striking out anyone. You also get a pretty right-handed heavy Yankees lineup, especially in terms of the actual good hitters. So that sets up well for Scherzer also. But that being said, like, he is expensive. It is a tough matchup. The Yankees don't have tons of strikeouts in their lineup, like in this version of their lineup where you don't have Stanton, you have Benintendi in there. So I certainly don't think it's a good matchup by any stretch, but at the same time, it's the best pitcher on the slate. And if you can get him into your lineups, you should still do it.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to see him still get into basically like a third of the lineups at this point in time in a matchup against, if you want to say it's the best offense on the day, sure, it's certainly in the running for it. Not a spectacular K matchup or anything that I'm seeing at this point. The actual lineup that comes out for the Yankees will be very key in this spot. But yeah, I got 30% Scherzer on my crunch. That's where he's owned. Seems like I'll just be around the field, at least if Locke were in, 2 minutes. What about Germán on the opposite side? 5% owned, 7K, one of the cheaper pitchers that you could actually go to today, but doesn't seem like the best spot.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great. Obviously, a really difficult matchup against the Mets. And so far this year, Germán only an 18.5% strikeout percentage, 4.69 xFIP. We know that there is talent there. He was what seemed like a promising young pitcher years ago before injuries and suspension. So there's some sort of upside, but hasn't really shown it this year. And then this matchup against the Mets isn't one that I'm really expecting it to come through. Only 255 pitches thrown to left-handed hitters so far this year, but also only a 10.8% strikeout percentage. 148 expected ISO isn't horrible, but it's basically, the way I view him here is just sort of like, if you're playing 150 lineups and he lands in a lineup here or there because you need a 7K SP2, then fine. But you're certainly not going to be looking at that and feeling confident. And it's certainly not somebody that I'm expecting to just be jamming into lineups over the field.
Yeah, I got like 2%. I don't really have much else to say here for Germán. It just doesn't feel like that good of a spot. So let's talk bats. And I guess we're going to go to the Mets because they stand out in a very different way in our top stack tool. They are 10th in aggregate ownership, 6th in our top stack tool, but 7.2% odds of being the top stack, 3.5% aggregate ownership. Are they just going wildly under-owned here?
I think so right now, at least. Yeah, because, like we were saying with Germán, there's some semblance of talent there that we've seen in the past, but it hasn't really shown up so far this year. And the Mets are one of those offenses where even if Germán was pitching better than he has been, I'd still be interested in them at 3% ownership because they have so much talent in this lineup. The one negative for the Mets, if we get the lineup that we're expecting, is you do have the 2 first basemen, most likely hitting 4th and 5th with Pete Alonso and Daniel Vogelbach. But you do get at least a nice price discount there. So in lineups where you can get to Pete Alonso, by all means, but also Vogelbach's got plenty of power, and he's hitting in Yankee Stadium from the left side, so that's pretty nice. I like the Mets here. There's plenty of left-handed power between Nimmo, Lindor, Vogelbach, McNeil, Brett Beatty, still 2,400, and you're getting them in Yankee Stadium now. So I agree that they're going on their own.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to see. I'll happily be over that mark if they maintain 3.5%. I'm honestly a little surprised to see the Mets implied total be as low as it is. Is that just like extra respect for Herman still?
I guess. I don't really know. It is kind of surprising.
Like I would have just expected at the very least like league average run scoring for this particular Mets offense in this spot. Like Herman is at best I would call him like an average starting pitcher right now. Yankees bullpen is going to be better than that, but I'm a little surprised to see the Mets total be as low as it is, which is even more interesting because if it goes up, I like them even more.
What do you have it at?
I had it at 4.1.
Okay, so I'm seeing 4.2. But like the way that you were talking, I thought you might have it at like 3.6 or something.
No. But like, like just looking at it at the surface, Herman relatively league average. The park, plays up to power. The Mets offense is obviously good. I would have assumed like 4.5, 4.6, something. Maybe 4, even 4.4. We're talking the summer here too.
Yeah,
something I'm going to pay attention to.
It is only.
I wouldn't see that
like 75 to 80 though.
That'll do it. That'll do it. What's the justification for going to the Yankees?
They're the Yankees. They have a lot of power. Clearly a very low probability spot against Scherzer. It's pretty crazy looking at the top stacks tool and seeing the Yankees have a lower top stack percentage than every team other than the Oakland Athletics. But yeah, I mean, the justification would be it's a bunch of really good hitters that have power and aren't getting ownership. That being said, I doubt that I get there.
Yeah, I ran a crunch and still didn't get to much. Feels like I should probably try to make sure that some more shows up, but I don't think it's really going to make much of a difference. Go Mets, I guess, based on this ownership. I got nothing else here. Actually, one more thing. No, we don't have anything else here. So from a cash perspective, we're certainly not going to any Yankees bats, and I assume we're not getting to any Mets bats either. Scherzer will be part of the discussion, but that'll be up in the air.
Yeah, for what it's worth, in the 100 lineups I just crunched without any settings or anything using the Stokastic projections, Scherzer's in all of them. And Brett Beatty's in 12%. Marte's in 1%. And other than that, nobody from this game is in a single lineup.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, guys, schedule for the rest of the day. This one's pretty easy. Best Ball Mania Monday, 3:45 on the Best Ball channel. And then you get the MLB Deeper Dive. Adam will be back for that one at 5 p.m. I will be back for MLB Live Before Lock at 6. Also, keep your eyes peeled for Adam's GPP videos. They will be out sometime after this show.
Thank you for reminding me because I like always forget on Mondays that like,
you're welcome.
I do that. So thanks.
You're welcome. MLB projections also free. So if you're watching this show at any point in time throughout the day, I'm sure you're looking to get a little bit of extra data for tonight's slate. MLB projections are free. Go straight to stokastic.com to check them out. Game 3, Pirates and Braves. 3.7 run implied total for the Pirates, 5 for the Braves. Ronzi Contreras going for Pittsburgh. Jake Odorizzi going for the Braves. Basically unowned here across the board. How do you feel about Odorizzi today?
Not great. I mean, it's a good matchup against the Pirates, so he has that working for him, but it's not a particularly good pitcher. I do think 2% ownership is lower than it should be, but still a relatively low probability guy. 17% strikeout percentage this year, 4.85 xFIP. At 7,200, if you get to a little bit, it's fine. The matchup's good, the park is good, but still not a particularly good pitcher here.
No, he is not. However, I think 2% is wrong at 7,200, particularly in a matchup against the Pirates in a park where, not a ton of power plays up here. I got to 14% in my crunch, and I think that feels like I'm okay with that if I need to pay down a little bit more. It's probably what's unlocking a bit of the Dodgers. I'm finding a little bit of salary at the bottom for a $7,200 Odorizzi.
I was just looking through his game logs, just bizarre results. So bad against the Mets, as you would expect. Bad against Miami, which, they're bad, but so is he. Bad against the Mets. Huge game against Houston. Terrible against Oakland. Good game against Houston. Good game against Oakland. But, I was just I was looking kind of just to see if he'd had a bunch of bad matchups recently, and it's just like, oh, the only team that he can actually have success against is the Astros.
That is something ridiculous. I mean, probably a bad sign when you get to face the Pirates then, right?
Yeah, obviously the Pirates is going to light him up.
They're not quite the same, not the same kind of skill set for Pittsburgh as you have in Houston, at least by a hair. That's my guess, at least. Contreras.
Oh, okay, yeah, good point, Josh Gillen.
What's the good point?
He was on the Astros. He wasn't facing the Astros.
Oh, great job reading this Monday morning.
Well, no, it's because the way the DraftKings game log works, it just says at Houston, but he was pitching for the Astros in Houston against someone else.
Jesus.
Like when players get traded or switch teams or whatever, their previous starts, it just says where the game was in the DraftKings game log.
Another
that
gem.
explains why he's had so many starts against the Astros.
I don't ever look at a DK game log, so I had I was in no position to ever reference that against you. So I was just going with it. I assumed whatever you were saying was true. You'll read anything that gets put on the teleprompter, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Any Contreras?
I don't think so. He's talented. He's a top pitching prospect, but really, really tough matchup for him against the Braves. There are strikeouts in this lineup, so that's good. But so far in the majors, certainly doesn't appear to be ready. And also, he's a Pirates pitcher, so he may never be ready until he's on a different team. 20.2% strikeout percentage, nearly an 11% walk percentage this year, 4.72 xFIP, 1.5 home runs per 9. Just doesn't seem ready to be here yet. 243 expected ISO to righties, 168 to lefties. He's just had more issues production-wise across the board to righties, which actually is not great when you're talking about a lineup that has Acuna, Swanson, Riley, Contreras, Grissom, Olsen left-handed, but obviously just hits everything. So pretty tough for me to make a case for Contreras here.
I got a couple percentage points of him. Basically the same sort of story as Odorizzi, just a guy that's not it's functional enough in the 7Ks, and I'm finding that I need a little bit of that salary. I can't really, pitch for him very hard. I will, however, bring up the Braves here. Number 1 in our top stack tool, 5th in top value, 1st in ownership. How do we manage the team that's coming up number 1 in both top stack and ownership?
I mean, I think you're going to end up playing them. I will say that in the crunch I just did with the Stokastic projections to try and see what cash lineups would look like, Braves just all over the place. Acuna in every single one. Rosario in 84%, D'Arnaud in 70%, Riley in 70%, Swanson in 65%, Grisham in 30%. So certainly showing up there, and that speaks to, I think, why they will be popular. They're just top plays at every position, basically. Yeah. But that being said, it's a very good offense. The park's not great for power, but with this team, I'm not sure it really matters. They just have so much of it. And then they're also not really that expensive. Ronald Acuna is $5,400, but that's cheaper than Ronald Acuna should be. Austin Riley, same thing. $5,100 is expensive in terms of raw salary, but Austin Riley's phenomenal. And then nobody else in this lineup is above 5K. Swanson at 4,900, but then everybody else 4,600 or below. So it's a lineup where you're getting some semblance of value in addition to a ton of upside.
Yeah. I understand why the ownership's coming in. I'm guessing just based on the way this normally goes, I'll be a little bit lighter, but I'm still going to be getting to Atlanta. They look fantastic in this spot. And guys like Acuna at this price tag are clearly always going to be 20+% owned. We're going to have a ton of cash options here. We'll definitely be talking about that in deeper dive and live before lock later today, but this is going to be a team pulling a ton of ownership. I don't really see a way around it.
Yeah, and one negative, if you look individually, is all the players outside of Robbie Grossman are projected for double-digit ownership. But even that, I think, is defensible because, again, the guys at the top we know are just phenomenal. But then, even somebody like Vaughn Grisham is underpriced at 2,100. He's got speed, he's got some power. Michael Harris, we know, has upside. Ozuna hasn't been very good this year, but he's 2,900 and has a track record of being a good hitter. So it's just it kind of sucks that you can't look to a couple of hitters to differentiate, but at the same time, they really all should be pulling ownership.
Should the Pirates be pulling any ownership today? Because they are.
Probably. Odorizzi's just not very good, but more importantly, the Pirates are really cheap. If you have Marcano leading off at 2K flat, that's pretty nice. He did lose second base eligibility, so it's going to make him look worse. But Brian Reynolds at 4,300 is going to look good. Rodolfo Castro, 2,400 is going to look good. Cruz is sort of always playable. So it's not a team where I'm going to be excited to get to a lot of them, but from a value standpoint and they're facing a pitcher who's not very good standpoint, I do think they make some sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's too crazy. Reynolds gets to 10% ownership, but these guys are just hovering around about 7%, which is slightly above average for today's slate. So I understand why it's happening. I'm more likely to get to Odorizzi than I am to get to the Pirates bats, but I think they kind of look the same. Like, I think Odorizzi is like the Pirates bats version of pitching today. So I'm likely to get to a little bit of one of those sides.
One thing I will say about the Pirates too, at least the way things look right now, like they're getting more ownership than their top stack percentage. But if you look at the lineups or look at the teams that have similar top value percentages to the Pirates, which would be Miami, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh, they're all in that same range. Pirates at 7%, Cincy at 6%, Miami at 8%. So that makes me think it's a little bit more likely that I do just mix in some Pirates. It would be different if you had them getting 7% and then you had some good value teams not getting anywhere close to that. But since all of the shitty teams that are cheap are getting similar ownership, I expect I kind of just end up getting there where I need hitter value.
Okay. We good to move on?
Yep.
All right. We're moving through this really quickly. I also just typed Rays incorrectly, and I put them in as the Rats, which is not a baseball team, but would be like a very interesting minor league team if you had some like rabid rat mascot. Can New York get a third team with the Rats? I think that'd be pretty good.
Something like that already, probably.
Some like independent ball or something. Yeah.
I mean, I figured some affiliated minor league team had something like that. You have the Trash Pandas. Like, why wouldn't you have some sort of like River Rats type team?
It's hard to sell rat positively to people.
And Trash Pandas?
Yeah, pandas are cute, man. Nobody's like, oh,
Trash
rats are
Pandas
cute.
are raccoons.
Yes, but you spin it with the word panda. We can't just call them like sewer rats, but instead of rats, we call them giraffes. You know what I mean? We're changing everything so that it doesn't sound as bad. It doesn't matter what it is after that. Bleak Smile with the super chat. Hey guys, wanted to give you a few dollars. I won my first tournament on Sunday's four-seamer. Watch these shows for the advice. Not a huge baseball fan, but wow, what a roller coaster on the Mets and Phillies. Kind of going yard twice. Thanks for the help, guys. Congrats, man. That's a great tournament to win. Appreciate the super chat big time. A little jealous that you took down the four-seamer.
Yeah, that's a tough one to win. I mean, they're all tough, but
yeah,
I feel like that one's like particularly difficult. Yeah, that game was crazy. My baseball day was long over, and I just kept getting alerts that Kana's hitting home runs. And I'm like, did they play double header today? Like, is this game really still going?
Yeah, congrats, man. That's awesome. It's good to see. Rats and Angels. 4.3 run implied total for the Rats, 3 for the Angels. Jeffrey Springs and Tucker Davidson. No ownership going to Davidson. I don't get the sense that you're going to be pitching him shortly. Springs, on the other hand, looking like a kind of essential piece today. 7,700 against a good strikeout matchup in the Angels, pulling 37% ownership at that mark, and I agree with it.
Yeah, another day where Jeffrey Springs' price is just completely incorrect. And it stands out even more on a slate like this, where one, you don't have a ton of good strikeout pitchers, and two, Max Scherzer is actually priced correctly in a tough matchup. It just makes Springs stand out even more. 26.1% strikeout percentage, 3.22 xFIP. The only issue he's really had this year is he has allowed 1.25 home runs per 9, but you're facing an Angels team that doesn't have many good hitters. Trout being back is obviously a negative for Springs, but there's also a chance Ohtani ends up not being in the lineup today after he left yesterday's start early with an illness. So you could certainly get a little bit of a watered down lineup there. And we know there's tons and tons of strikeouts here. You're in Tropicana Field, which helps to mitigate power. It's going to be a right-handed heavy lineup you would expect from the Angels, which is perfectly fine for Springs. 29% strikeout percentage to righties compared to 19% to lefties this year. 130 expected ISO to righties, 189 to lefties, 266 expected WOBA to righties, 359 to lefties. So, and there's a good reason for it. He has a changeup that he throws 43% of the time to right-handed hitters with a 22% swinging strike percentage and basically no power allowed. So having a right-handed heavy Angels lineup really is no concern at all and probably a benefit for Springs. I don't have any sort of negative argument against him on this particular slate.
Is he the best option relative to salary today?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, we have him being the highest owned pitcher right now. I completely agree. He should be the highest owned pitcher.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the other guys, like, obviously I'm not taking anything away from Max Scherzer, but I feel more comfortable with a 37% owned Springs than a 30% owned Scherzer against the Yankees. I feel more comfortable with a $7,700 37% owned Springs than a 35% owned Urias at $10K against Milwaukee. Again, not to take anything away from him. I think he's a good play, and we'll talk about him. But Springs is the one where I'm just like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is the guy that I just end up sort of jamming in, and then I'm, sort of spreading stuff out elsewhere.
Red Skittles and Stephen Leibowitz were thinking that they should have been the Tampa Devil Rats. Little rats with wings. That'd be great. I like it. Rebrand. We're going to rebrand the Tampa Bay baseball team. I'm in for it. Anything you want to say about Tucker Davidson?
Nope.
Makes sense to me. Let's talk Rays bats. 7th in top stack, 6th in top value, 4th in ownership. Ownership is probably a little bit higher just because where they rank in both top stack and top value. They've got 3 guys in the projected lineup with an MPE, which always helps. How do you feel about Tampa today?
I think they look good. I don't like the park. I don't particularly like the lineup, but Davidson has certainly struggled this year. Not a very large sample in the majors, but 13.8% strikeout percentage, 350 expected WOBA to righties. Has done a good job limiting power with only a 115 expected ISO. If you go back to last year, 173 expected ISO to righties. I still think that, Diaz, Arozarena, Margot, Ramirez, Mejia, Paredes, like all these guys from the right side do have enough power, I think, to do some damage here. And they're not very expensive either, like you said.
Yeah. Like they just kind of are today. I have a little bit of them. My top stack odds look exactly like ours. If I have some of the Rays today, I think that's totally fine. I just kind of like a couple other offenses a little bit more, but they're really, really easy to put together outside of the 5K Arozarena. It's not like that price is all that problematic, but just a bunch of 3K guys with MPEs or we're hitting the right sort of positions. I get how they can be pulling extra ownership. That's for sure. I don't get how anyone is going to the Angels, however.
No, neither do I. Like, I guess the argument would be that Jeffrey Springs is going to be popular, but if he's 35 to 40% owned, like, I don't even think that's problematic ownership. So I have a really hard time getting to the Angels outside of course, Trout, Ohtani. If Ohtani's in the lineup, he's my favorite play from the Angels, which obviously isn't a hot take, but just to reiterate, like, Springs has actively gotten lit up by left-handed hitters this year, and we know Ohtani can hit left-handed pitching, so he would look really good individually, but yeah, I'm good on the Angels.
Red Skittles nails it again. The Washington Ratskins. That one I love. Okay. I don't have anything else here. So
no, me neither.
It is time for us to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor. That would be Prize Picks. But before we do that, hit that like button. 350 people in here, 82 likes. We should be up over 100 at this point. If you use the promo code AWESEMO when you sign up at Prize Picks, that's AWESEMO, you'll get a $100 deposit bonus, or up to a $100 deposit bonus. If you only put in 50, they don't still give you 100. That would be a rough deal for them. But if you put in 100, they will match with 100. We've got plenty of tools at Stokastic.com that can help you out. Adam and I are going to talk about a few of the pitcher fantasy scores and whether we like the over or the under there today. But if it's not baseball, that's your cup of tea, you can go to tennis, KBO. It's actually relatively limited today. Sometimes there's highlight and disc golf. Obviously, you can get into all of the normal sports. Soccer is on here as well. Liverpool takes on Manchester United today, so make sure you're watching that one. Adam, I'm going to give you the first pitcher score. This one's going to be the big one. Max Scherzer, over under 39.5.
We have 39.4.
Okay. I've got the under. That should be no surprise. Tends to be the case here. On the opposite side of this one, Domingo Germán, over under 22.5.
Over.
I have it at 21 and change, so that would be more of a push for me. Let's grab two more. Let's go back. We'll go to Jake Oder. Actually, no, we'll go to Syndergaard. Syndergaard, 33.5.
Under.
Yeah, I got a pretty firm under there. Now we'll run it back. We'll go to Jake Odorizzi. Final one. Do you like the over or the under for Jake Odorizzi at 27.5?
Under.
Yeah, I got him as a slight under there. I got a slight over to Contreras, though. His line is 21.5. I think there's some upside in that number.
Yeah, we have him at 22.
Perfect. Well, there you go, guys. That is Prize Picks. Go check them out. Use that promo code AWESEMO when you sign up to get up to $100 on your first deposit. Twins and Rangers, 4.9 run implied total for the Twins, 3.5 for the Rangers. Sonny Gray and Cole Reagans going here. No one rostering Reagans. 25% of the field rostering your boy, Sonny Gray, at 8,500. This spot looks really good for Gray.
Yeah, it does. Strikeout percentage up to 24.3% this year, slowly trending back towards where you expect him to be. 3.6 xFIP, 0.8 home runs per 9. He's been solid all season long. The only negative has been that the strikeout numbers are a little bit down from where you would expect, but also it's just been a weird season for him, sort of, injury wise and being limited at the beginning of the year with the abbreviated spring training and all of that. So I still think he's a very good pitcher. The matchup against Texas is fine. Most of their best hitters are left-handed, which really isn't too much of a concern for Gray. 25% strikeout percentage, 118 expected ISO to lefties this year, 279 expected WOBA. So not somebody that you really have to worry about the splits. Has a good curveball, throws it 46% of the time to lefties. Does a very good job mitigating their production. So it makes Gray look really good. Certainly one of my favorite pitchers today.
All right. I don't have anything else that I could really add here. Great strikeout matchup against Texas. Implied total looks good. It's a park that doesn't give up much righty power. Now the Rangers lineup is filled with lefty power, but Sonny Gray, I think he's good. I think he looks good. Would you rather have Sonny Gray today or Jeffrey Springs?
Jeffrey Springs.
Okay, just making sure everybody gets it.
Yeah, and I mean that's the consensus too. Like Gray's getting 60% of the ownership of Springs basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Springs is cheaper, better strikeout matchup. I think Springs is the guy that I would play, but I certainly also really like Sonny Gray.
How do you feel about the Twins offense? 4th in top stack today, 2nd in aggregate ownership right now. I have them basically with the exact same top stack odds. I think they look pretty good here against Reagans.
Yeah, I agree. Reagans seems to have some semblance of talent based on his minor league numbers, but certainly hasn't translated to the majors yet in his first 3 starts. 14 and a third innings, just not getting any strikeouts. 242 pitches thrown against right-handed hitters since coming up. 8.5% strikeout percentage, 370 expected WOBA, 209 expected ISO. Now he gets to deal with Buxton, Correa, Miranda, Urshela, Polanco, like all these guys from the right side. Arise from the left side, but he doesn't strike out and just puts the ball in play. So it's a pretty difficult spot for him. 5.1 implied run total. I think Minnesota looks good.
All right. So do I. I don't. How do you see them in relationship to the Braves and the Phillies at this point?
Right now, I think that they're pretty comparable. Like we have Minnesota with a 9% chance of being the top stack. We have Philadelphia at 12%. We have the Braves at 16%. We have the Braves getting the most ownership, and then Philly and the Twins being about the same, but the Twins offer a little bit more value. So I kind of just think that they're all more or less getting the correct amount of ownership. There's nothing that is going to push me away from them.
Nothing better than seeing second owned easy fade from resident moron in chat, as if 10% aggregate ownership is this number that you can't possibly get above. Cash options in the Twins lineup. I see a couple guys north of or in the double digit range. Did you have anybody popping up in that chat or in your crunch rather?
Buxton showed up around 30%, Correa 22, Miranda 20, Polanco 10.
Certainly could sneak in. I mean, it seems like the Braves are going to be the primary cash team at this moment, and then you're just going to work around that.
Yeah, pretty much.
With some combination of, I would imagine, Scherer or Urias and Springs.
All 100 lineups for Springs, Scherzer.
Oh, really? Okay. That's interesting, given Urias slightly more owned at this moment, but maybe that salary just isn't as necessary for the bats that you need. Anyway, let's look at the Rangers side of this.
To answer Sean's question, how the hell are the Twins higher than the Dodgers? For one, there's a salary cap, and the Twins are a lot cheaper. And for two, Eric Lauer is a hell of a lot better than Cole Reagans.
There you go.
Not to say that the Dodgers are bad, but that's the answer to that question.
Yeah.
And they're also barely higher.
There you go.
Like it's 10% to 9%.
Can't play the Dodgers, though. Can't play the Twins. Can play the Dodgers, though, at a half percentage point difference in aggregate ownership. It's where you got to just draw that line in the sand pretty hard. 9th in top stack, 12th in ownership. Is there any appeal to getting to the Rangers on the opposite side of the Sonny Gray ownership? Because I don't think they look as bad as you would think at first glance.
Yeah, I mean, if you do, it's kind of you're just saying, Seager's good, Nate Lowe has power, Calhoun's 2K flat, so that's a nice value spot where there's some power. Brad Miller's 2K flat with some power. Like, I guess that would be the argument, but there's nothing about Sonny Gray that I'm pointing to and saying, like, oh, he struggles with this and the Rangers have it. Like, it would purely just be I'm just betting on Corey Seager type play.
Yeah, I didn't get to much here. Happily would get some Seager or even still $4,800 Semien, but this isn't what I need. Cubs and Cardinals. 3.6 run implied total for the Cubs, 4.5 for the Cardinals. Drew Smyly and Jordan Montgomery going here. I feel like Jordan Montgomery pitches every day, and I think he's had 27 starts for the Cardinals at this point since the trade deadline.
It seems like he pitches
3 weeks. Just every day I talk about him. Smyly pulling a little bit of ownership at 7%. He's 7,500. Montgomery is about 15% owned at 8,300. I think Montgomery's ownership looks completely normal. Curious to get your thoughts on where he ranks in relationship to, say, Sonny Gray and Syndergaard. But let's start with Montgomery here. How do you feel about him against the Cubs?
I think he looks fine. The strikeout numbers have come up a bit. He's up to 21.5% for the season, 5% strikeout percentage, 3.48 xFIP. He's a good pitcher. He's facing a Cubs team that does have strikeouts in their lineup. Looks like the wind is blowing in Wrigley. Looks like it's going to be around 70 degrees as well. So pretty favorable pitching conditions, it appears. 3.7 implied run total for the Cubs. Montgomery, I think, is just like a good pitcher. I think the 16% ownership makes sense. I don't think there's a lot like distinguishing him from Syndergaard, for example.
I agree. I have them as basically the exact same person today. Montgomery projected slightly higher, but also $500 more expensive. So, that offset is right there.
Yeah, and that's how we have it on the website as well. 16.1 DraftKings points for Montgomery, 15.6 for Syndergaard, $500 more for Montgomery. That kind of just comes out in the wash.
Perfect. What about Smyly on the opposite side? Do you have any interest there at 7,500? Seems not great to me.
Yeah, pretty tough spot against the Cardinals. Smyly's somebody that I don't mind rostering at pretty inexpensive price tags when he has good matchups. 20.1% strikeout percentage, 4.14 xFIP this year. But I don't really think this is the spot I want to do it. The Cardinals have tons and tons of right-handed power in their lineup. And then on top of that, there's not really, like, this isn't a very strong pitching slate overall, but there's not really a shortage of mid-range arms you can get to. Smyly at 7,500, obviously a little bit less expensive than Syndergaard, but $300. You have Montgomery at 8,300. It's not even like 8,500 for Sonny Gray is difficult to get to. So I just doubt that I'm going to end up getting too much Smyly in this spot.
I think that's fair. How much Cardinals do you want to get to? 3rd in our top stack tool, 6th in ownership, decent enough value. Seems like they're getting slept on just a little bit here. I think they look good.
Yeah, I think they're going a little bit under owned, just given how much power they have in the lineup. Smyly so far this year has allowed a 183 expected ISO to righties as well, so he does give up some power. Albert Pujols still 2K flat, despite being legitimately good this year. I had actually pulled up his Fangraphs the other day when he hit the 2 home runs because I kind of assumed that he actually wasn't very good overall, but he was just in the middle of a hot streak. He has he now has a 141 WRC plus this year. It was 126 going into that game. So obviously when you only have 227 plate appearances, it changes pretty quickly, but he's been legitimately good. 242 ISO, still 2K flat here in a good spot. And then obviously, if you can find the salary, you have Paul Goldschmidt, who's one of the best first base options. Arenado looks really good. Carlson's still pretty cheap. O'Neill's reasonably priced. I do think the Cardinals are going a bit under-owned here against Smyly. Yeah,
you and me both. I think this looks pretty good. And always happy to get a road team as well, guarantee those 9 innings.
Yeah, and Pujols, by the way, also in that cash crunch I did, showing up second most frequently at first base behind Derek Hall.
Damn. What year is it?
I know.
Can we take a time machine? And this guy was too old 10 years ago when he signed that Angels deal.
Right. Yeah, he says that this is still going to be his last year, but we'll see.
I cannot wait till we find out in another year that he's actually like 65 years old.
Right.
It's crazy how long he's playing, even after like all of those age questions. Back when he was on the Cardinals 15 years ago or whenever the hell that was.
Right. Stephen Leibowitz asked if they will pinch hit for Pujols. They could, but also 4 at bats 2 games ago against Arizona, 3 the game before that, 3 the game before that. That was a game where I believe he pinch hit in the 2nd inning, so he didn't start. Yeah, that was the game he hit the grand slam, the pinch hit grand slam in the 2nd inning. But they could, but like he's got enough games mixed in where he has 4 or 5 plate appearances that it's not a given. And even if it were at 2K flat, he's going to look okay.
Sean V just nailing the quality details, assuming the Cardinals would be the most owned team, but they're 6th. That's great assumptions right out of the gate with only 16 teams to choose from. How do you feel about Cubs bats? Is there anything here against Montgomery? Doesn't look like the best lineup in the world, but they're unowned if you need something.
Yeah, I don't have much there. Like, he's just a good pitcher. 135 expected ISO to righties. Again, I don't think the hitting conditions are particularly favorable here either. Wilson Contreras is always a good option, but he's also $6,000. Patrick Wisdom's expensive. Suzuki's expensive. Franmil Reyes at 3,200, I guess, is okay. Madrigal's probably leading off at 2,800, but outside of just random tournament filler, I don't see much.
Yeah, same. Well, guys, one last thing to talk about here, and it's the fact that you guys didn't get up to 100 likes, 97. Let's hit that thumbs up. We still have NFL preseason projections for you guys to check out. We've got a couple more weeks. We've got like 2 full weeks before the NFL starts. If you would like our NFL preseason projections for just $7 through Sunday, August 29th, you can do that using the promo code ABEAR. I assume this is for Bobby Hebert, former quarterback in the NFL. I'm being told that the promo code is actually Herbert, different quarterback, I guess. I just assumed it was Bobby Hebert, but maybe I'm wrong. HERBERT. Get the preseason NFL projections for just $7 using that promo code at checkout. 2 games to go. A's and Marlins. 3.3 run implied total for the A's. 3.8 for the Marlins. Adam Oller and Edward Cabrera going in this one. Oller not really getting any ownership. Cabrera, 8,800, projected for 14% ownership. I guess I get it, and he projects all right. How do you see Cabrera in relationship to Sonny Gray?
I think Cabrera should be getting more ownership here.
Okay, talk to me about it.
He's only getting 14% ownership, so more or less like half the ownership of Gray, who, again, I really like. But Cabrera's got good strikeout stuff. And so I guess I don't even really like comparing him to Gray so much as I do. And I mean, it's a different price tier, so like I get it, but Jordan Montgomery for $500 less, getting more ownership against the Cubs. Syndergaard getting more ownership for $1,000 less. But neither of those guys are even on the same in the same category in terms of strikeout stuff. Cabrera, limited sample this year, 6 starts with Miami, 28.8% strikeout percentage, 33.6% at AAA this year in 6 starts. He's a highly regarded prospect. He's supposed to be good. Zips has him with a 25.8% strikeout percentage going forward. The Bat has him with a 25.9% strikeout percentage going forward. He's facing the A's in Oakland. Like, he's not a finished product. He still walks too many guys. He's been pretty inefficient with his pitches as a result. 91 pitches in 4 innings against San Diego, 91 pitches in 5 2/3 2 starts ago against Philadelphia. But I think there's really legitimate upside for him here just from strikeouts that nobody else really offers on this slate outside of like Springs and Scherzer.
Yeah, I think he looks good. I have all this whole group, the Cabrera, Gray, Montgomery, Syndergaard group, as all very, very similar relative to each other. Does Cabrera separate for you?
No, I think he's in that range as well.
Okay.
Like I agree with like looking at the Stokastic projections, you have Gray at 16.7, Montgomery at 16.1, Cabrera at 16.1, Syndergaard at 15.6. So like they're all lumped together. I just think there's a little bit more, I guess, like volatility or upside or however you want to word it in Cabrera.
Okay.
Like if one of those guys, and well, not even including Gray in this because he obviously could do it too, but like if one of Montgomery, Cabrera, Syndergaard, if you tell me that one of those 3 has 8 strikeouts in 4 innings, I am pretty confident it's Cabrera.
I'm with you there. I mean, he's got big time strikeout stuff. So, and striking out the A's, there's some spots here where you could really start to rack them up. Certainly the park will help from a run scoring perspective. Adam Aller, anything here?
He's bad. Very.
Here's
bad.
Here's a legitimate question for you. Are you ready? I won't even pull up any extra details. It'll just be fun to ask. Do you want to place a bet on this game today? I assume the answer is maybe.
Yeah.
Do we want to take sides on the actual attendance for this game? Oakland A's, Miami Marlins in Oakland on a Monday.
What's the line? Like 3,500?
I don't know. I wanted to look it up to see how many people have actually been attending Oakland A's games. This has to be like one of the least interesting tickets that someone could get. Like, obviously the Miami fans aren't traveling for this one.
And they don't really have fans either.
No, they do not. Like, the amount of free tickets that you can get. If you live in the Oakland area, feel free to call up local radio stations. I have a sneaky suspicion they've got plenty to give away for today.
If you live in the Oakland area, just buy Giants tickets for whenever the next time they play is.
Yeah, or just don't go to this and find something else to do. Okay, let's see. I'm going to look. Their attendance, okay. So they just had a 3-game homestand against Seattle, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Friday game started with 16,000. They had 9,600 on Saturday, 9,300 on Sunday. They had 5,400 a couple Mondays ago against the Angels. 4,100 against Houston on a Monday a couple weeks ago. I'm thinking like 4,200,
yeah,
4K.
This line's got to be like 4K because you're naming teams that travel better than the Marlins. Like, I'm not positive, but I think Seattle weirdly travels well. And also, I mean, it's still a West Coast team. It's a divisional game. The Angels obviously are going to have plenty of fans in that area. Houston's a good team.
Yeah.
And have been for a while. This line's got to be like 3,500 or 4K or something.
It's really bad. It's incredible to me that, like, they got 42,000 people for a Wednesday game against the Braves, and they're going to get 1/10 of that today on a Monday game against the Marlins. Awful. Anyway, let's get to bats here. Do you want to get to the number 1 value team today, the Miami Marlins, or do you prefer the number 2 value team, the Oakland A's?
Certainly prefer the Marlins. All are just not in the same category as Edward Cabrera in terms of talent. 14.7% strikeout percentage, 5.9 xFIP, 2.35 home runs per 9. This guy would not be pitching in the major leagues if he were in any other organization, probably. 7 starts at AAA this year, 23% strikeout percentage, 12% walk percentage, 5.65 xFIP. Just really, really bad pitcher. And Miami is not good either, but I'll take my chances there. I think JJ Bleday at 20 or at 2K flat looks legitimately good. Aguilar at 2,500 is solid. 2,300 for Brian Anderson is weirdly low. John Birdie gives you ridiculous strikeout upside. So certainly on the Miami side here over Aller or the A's.
Yeah, I didn't get to much A's. I got to a little bit of the Marlins, but nothing too crazy. I understand that they're a great value, but it's not all that interesting. And while I don't want to say too much about what's going on in chat, those questions, I did not see the video of the young man having a great time with his friend in the stadium, but good for him. That's probably way more entertaining than the baseball game.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
Kudos to her. I think that's what we can say here. I don't have anything else to add for Marlins A's.
Me neither.
We will close it out with my favorite team for today. That would be the Dodgers. 4.8 run implied total here for LA. 3.1 for the Brewers. Julio Urias and Eric Lauer. Lauer pulling no ownership because he's 9K against the Dodgers. So while they did start to price pitchers up, they kind of went the wrong direction with Lauer today. Doesn't really matter here. 35% ownership going to Julio Urias, which is second on the slate, actually ahead of Scherer. Let's start there. How do you feel about Urias?
I think he's a good play. I'm a little surprised he's getting as much ownership as he is at 10K, but he has been good all year long. Not throwing a ton of pitches, but he has gone over 90 in like 6 of his last 7. So that's good. And 89 in the one where he didn't. You're probably getting 6-7 innings out of him. Decent strikeout matchup against the Brewers. There is some right-handed power here, but not a huge concern against Urias. 172 expected ISO is high-ish, but nothing crazy there. 317 expected WOBA to righties. So it's mostly just that at that price, I'm a little surprised he's getting 35% ownership. Like, I think I'm going to just end up getting more Jeffrey Springs probably, and then probably more like Sonny Gray, Edward Cabrera. But I think that given the weak pitching on the slate, he's obviously one of the better pitchers.
I can't imagine you have interest in Lauer.
All I'll say is I think 1% is probably a little low. Like, he is actually a pretty good pitcher, 24% strikeout percentage this year. I got a little bit of him last time he faced the Dodgers, but it's more so just I have a 5-man Brave stack and need to offset it somehow. I'm not like actually trying to get to a lot of Lauer.
I am apparently trying to get to a lot of the Dodgers. I've got these dudes everywhere in everything. The park is great for what they want to do. The righty power gets played up here. They're going to have a ton of it because they're the Dodgers. This, to me, is my favorite spot. They're 5th in our top stack tool, 6th in ownership. Basically, top stack and ownership on the same number. I really like the Dodgers today.
Yeah, I pretty much always like the Dodgers. 172 expected ISO to righties from Lauer this year. So I need to clarify. When I was talking about Urias, 108 expected ISO to righties, 262 expected WOBA. So again, not having issues there. It's Lauer that has the 172 expected ISO, 317 expected WOBA. And you're just getting, tons of very good hitters from the Dodgers.
Yeah, it's everybody's in everything. I've got a ton across the board. I'll have to trim it a little bit because it seems a little unnecessary given the amount that I actually have right now. They're just projecting so well. Love the power potential here. This feels like the type of game where I could see like the Dodgers are going to have a few dongs. I wish that I could bet on that, but unfortunately I cannot. Well, I can, but like not the good way. Do you like the Brewers at all against Urias? Because I don't think that's all that crazy.
Yeah, I have a hard time there. 3 implied run total.
Yeah.
Doesn't give up power like I just clarified. McCutchen at 4K flat looks reasonable. Keston here at 3,400 multi-position eligibility if you want somebody to strike out 4 times and maybe hit a home run. But I think they're a really tough team to get to.
Yeah, it's a little appealing just because of how much Urias is getting into, and like I don't think that the Brewers' offense is bad. The projected lineup that I have in for the Brewers has a higher aggregate ISO than the Dodgers lineup does, which is very interesting to me. Would not have expected that.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. Hanser Alberto's 110 is really not helping matters, but neither here nor there. So interesting spot if you want to try to buy a couple homers just for how much right-handed power plays up. But Urias is not the type of guy that I really want to target against. I would much rather just have the Dodgers. So let's sum this up. Favorite pitchers for today?
Springs, Gray. Obviously Scherzer is good. Urias is good. I like Edward Cabrera.
There we go. I like it. And then finally, favorite stacks for today?
Atlanta, Minnesota, Cardinals, despite the weather.
Atlanta looks to be the team that I'm actually getting away from. Who the hell knows what that ends up looking like in
I forgot the Mets.
6 hours, but I am Dodgers. That's the team I'm behind right now. We'll see if we actually have that by the end of the day. GPP videos coming out in a little bit. Anything else you need to add?
Nope.
There it is, everybody. Another strategy show in the books. Thanks for being here, and thank you to Prize Picks for being the sponsor of this show. Good luck for everything you guys are doing tonight. Make sure you're watching Deeper Diving Live before lock from 5 to 7:05 tonight. Peace.